What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to talk about Kelly Curtis, who the media has dubbed the first black, quote-unquote, skeleton athlete to compete for the U.S. at the Olympics. And first, before I get into this, I do want to give a few disclaimers because I know this video can be, or rather has the potential to be, a little triggering for some people. So I'm going to give a disclaimer or two. So I have nothing against white passing biracials and white passing people of color. All right. This is not an attack on Kelly Curtis or other white passing people. As I mentioned before, I have white passing people in my family. This video more so centering around definitions of what people consider to be black versus what people consider to be non-black. All right, so let's get into this. So, as I mentioned before, Kelly Curtis, she is the first black, quote-unquote, male or female skeleton athlete to compete in the Olympics, or to represent the United States in the Olympics. And I noticed the media, they are pushing this narrative that she is a black woman, right? The mainstream media, which ultimately is nothing new, since the mainstream media, particularly when it comes to like Hollywood, does push the narrative that biracial women are black, but I do think they're taking this to another level. Because I think before, when it came to the Hollywood movies and television shows and whatnot, at least the women that they were using had some visible form of blackness, if they were mixed. But at this point, I don't really see much visible form of blackness in regards to Kelly Curtis. So for me, a question that I have is like, where's the cutoff line going to be of who's considered black, who or what is considered mixed, who or what is considered to be completely non-black, etc., right? Where is the cutoff? Is it like, 75% is going to be the cutoff? Since when it comes to African Americans, we can't just say like, oh, it's going to be 100%. If anything less, you're not black. And I don't think that's going to work with African American people. So I think that the cutoff is probably going to have to be a little bit lower than 100% for African American people. And by the way, that's the perspective that I'm coming from with this. I know that some people who listen to me are, non-African American, but black still, perhaps from Europe, from the Caribbean, perhaps from Africa, or, Latin America, perhaps, what have you. But for me, my perspective, I'm just coming from an African American perspective when it comes to this. So again, where is the cutoff going to be? 75%? 60%? 50%? Is it just going to be one drop? If you have just one drop of black in you, you are as black as they come. All right, you're the blackest person that ever walked the earth if you have one drop of black in you. Is it going to be based on phenotype, perhaps? Just like, hey, if you have a black look, you're black no matter what. If you don't, no matter what, you don't have a claim to blackness. All right. So I think we do have to, at this point, establish amongst black folks, amongst the black community, what we're going to consider to be black and what we are going to consider to be non-black. Since, the one drop rule, it is no longer a law. It's no longer on the books. It's still active within the culture, within American culture, definitely. But that law is no longer on the books. So it's not like, oh, you're breaking the law, you know. In my personal opinion, is she a black woman? I'll say no, and that's okay. I think that she's a white woman, or at least at most like a white passing woman of color, and that's okay too. It doesn't mean that she can't be proud of having, some black African ancestry of some sort at all. But I think the problem comes when it comes time for representation, and especially, when it comes to black women, right? Are black women, comfortable with someone like Kelly Curtis representing them based on like phenotype, and race? Because I know somebody gonna come through and be all like, well, there are black women who represent black women and they ain't no good. They're black women who represent black women bad. We need to get rid of them. And again, I'm basing this on, in this video, in this situation, it's just centering around, do you feel like this represents you in terms of phenotype? Racial characteristics, etc. And another thing that I want to bring up that's important is, does Kelly Curtis claim a black identity? Is she doing this in order to be the first of something and to get some promo and to get a little bit of shine? Because she is getting promo and shine from this. Because if she went as a white woman, we wouldn't even know about her. She would just end up being just glossed over to an extent, at least, unless she did very well at the Olympic Games. Then it's like, oh, who's she? Right? And that's something else where it's like, if you are a biracial person and you're put into a white space, and I'm, in this case, I'm biracial mixed with black and white, right? And you're put into a white space, you're not going to be pushed to the top and put on a pedestal simply for being biracial, mixed, white passing, whatever you are. It's going to be because of what you do, right? You're going to have some sort of a talent, some sort of skill, some intellect, some athleticism in this case, right? But notice that she was able to get further by going down the black road, right? Going the black route, right? Claiming blackness, right? So we already know about her, and she hasn't even competed really yet. And I bring that up to say that sometimes biracial people will kind of mosey on into the black community because it's just easier to be exceptional in the black community as a biracial versus in the white community as a biracial. Another thing I want to bring up is, who does Kelly Curtis date in terms of race? Does she consider black men to be an option? If so, how black are these men that you're going to be dating? Are they black, kind of black, medium black? What type of black? And I know some people going to feel like that is being a little superficial, but I think it's important to bring up, because the thing is, you don't want, you don't want folks to be all like, oh, blackity black this, blackity black that, and then they don't even fool with black people. They don't even date black people. Like, I know when it comes to black women and they're, looking at black men who portray themselves to be pro-black, but then in their dating life, they are very much multiculturalist. You're like, the black women often like, oh, whoa, what's that about? you know? And, they have a right to be like that. So that's where I'm coming from with this. You know, again, like Kelly, she can date who she wants, right? Kelly Curtis can date who she wants, but I'm just saying, does she date black men at all? And her dad is the black parent, but if you look at him, he's not all that black, you know, and that's probably the reason. Her mom's white and her dad is a very light skinned black man, so that's the reason why Kelly looks the way that she does. And for people who love to say like, oh, the black gene is the dominant gene. Oh, one drop of black makes you black and all that stuff. And like the thing is, like, if the black gene was as dominant as you're trying to portray it to be, then why doesn't Kelly and her dad look like, the blackest people who walk the earth? Why do they look the way that they do? Also, will Kelly Curtis procreate with black men? Because I kind of view her and get a vibe from her as she kind of ended up going to be with a white man, and she's going to end up having a white man's child. And is her child going to be black? At this point, like, are we going to take it there too? Like, well, her mama black. And then you look at her mama, you be like, okay, where the black queen at though? Where the black queen at? I don't see no black queen. Right? Think like, oh, her mama a black queen. Like, the child's mom is a black queen, right? And a bit of a sidebar here. As I mentioned before, I do have members of my family who are white passing. And I also remember posting a photo of some of my family members and getting some interesting comments. But that's another story. But what I do want to talk about here is, I have a cousin, and his dad and my dad are brothers. And his dad ended up having a child with a white woman. The rest of the brothers had, married and had children with black women. FYI, my uncle did not marry, the white woman who he had my cousin with. But that's another story too. But my uncle, his dad is very, 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 very light skinned, if not white passing. His mom is white. And my cousin ended up coming out pretty much more or less like Kelly Curtis looks, more or less like that. And he ended up having a child with a white woman. And also, I believe there was some, like, a little bit of like prejudice and bigotry mixed up in there a little bit too when it came to like the grandma. Like, my cousin's baby mama's mother basically had some issues with it because my cousin is part black, and they were acting like they didn't really want to have nothing to do with the child before the child actually came. I mean, and not like they're going to have like Kunta Kinte, right? If like someone who's white passing and a white person have a child together, they ain't having Kunta Kinte. They're not having a highly melanated black African child. That's just not going to happen. But even still, there was like, I don't know. If you black, step back, right? Even though, from what I heard, the mom be fooling around with black dudes too, though. But nah. They don't want that in their family, though, right? They don't want that in their family. But how black do you think that their daughter is? Because she was actually included in that photo that I posted of my family. And if you look at her, you probably wouldn't think that she had any sort of blackness in her at all. So I say that to say that, yes, black is not the dominant, black gene is not the dominant gene when it comes to these situations. Blackness can be erased. We've seen blackness be erased plenty times before. And just because you say something is black due to the one drop rule doesn't mean that it's actually black. It just means that that person may have some sort of connection to blackness somewhere down their ancestral lineage. But jumping back to the Kelly Curtis situation, let's say if a black woman, like a phenotypically black woman who is undeniably black, we don't have to do an ancestry DNA test. We don't have to get pictures of her parents. We don't have to look into her medical history, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's say if, a black woman, right, a brown skin, dark skin black woman actually becomes a skeleton athlete representing the United States for the Olympics. Do you think that they're going to be like, well, this woman is the first since she is, black, quote unquote, like, phenotypically black, right? Or are they going to say, oh, she's the second one, so it's no big deal, right? Right. And I know that may be a little petty, but it's something to think about, though, right? Kind of like if we have a president of the United States who is, majority black, 100% black, or, who's not mixed, right? Like, Barack Obama is, right? Would that president be considered the first black president and Barack Obama considered the first biracial president, or would he be considered the second African American black president? Just putting it out there. But I've gone on for long enough. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments section below. Into the next video. Adios and goodbye for now.